Well, good morning, guys, and welcome to the show. Fernando.
Welcome to the show.
You picked a great time to do that.
I'm trying to get out of this.
Nothing sucks worse than ordering like what you think is going to come on a spool and then it doesn't.
I know, man. I don't know why.
This morning we have a 2015 Ford Mustang Roush edition. It's got a supercharger. We're gonna be putting a big Alpine system in it. All this stuff sitting here on the bench behind me. But before we take a look at that, let's take a look and see what this has from the factory so we know what we're getting rid of. First up, one of the cool features about the Mustang when you buy the premium audio package, you get a 6.5 in the bottom of the door, you get a mid-range, and then up here on the A-pillar, you get a tweeter. This is one of the reasons why I bought my Mustang, and at some point, hopefully, I'll put a stereo in the car to take advantage of it. But let's concentrate on this one. It's got an 8-inch touchscreen in the dash with a USB location down here, as well as a USB hub, SD card slot, and all those fun things here in the center console. A couple things about this radio that make this radio unique is that you can use an iData MFT1 kit to replace this, which is what we're going to be doing today because we have a big Alpine 409 halo that's going in the dash. Or you can use the iData interface going into a DSR1 to replace the factory amplifier and get 8 channels of preamp level output. This is awesome because we have a lot of choices on what we can do. Keep the radio, get full preamp, get rid of the radio, and obviously get full preamp there. Makes it real fun, real unique, pretty awesome. The factory subwoofer is this lower speaker here in the bottom of the door. Obviously, we're not going to be putting a subwoofer there. We have a box with 2 10s that he actually brought with him. There's 2 more 6.5 inch in the back. Those are going to be coaxials. And speaking of the back, let's head back there and we'll talk about the kind of room we have to put amplifiers and stuff like that. Now, in the Mustang, Ford very rarely gives you a spare tire. Most of the time, it comes with a big piece of foam that goes right here, a fix-a-flat kit, and that's it. There's nothing else. Every now and then, you'll find one that actually has a spare tire. I'm sure it's something you have to pay for. It's usually a piece of carpeted board that goes over this. He just bought the car and it came with this, an upgraded hardwood panel. It's actually kind of nice because usually when we do our amp racks here, we have to build something up out of the center to keep it from sagging. We won't have to do this on this one. Yay. This is the 210s box he had in his previous Mustang. He had a 2010 before this one. It fits into here minus the rubber mat, which he's like, could you guys throw that away? And I was like, yeah. This will give us plenty of room to mount our amplifiers, crossovers. One of the things when working on a Mustang, which we'll show you in a little bit later, is wire routing. A lot of people always want to go this way and this way. You don't want to do that, and we'll talk about that later on. We have a stack of equipment that needs to go in this car. Let's take a look at it. We're gonna go with the ILX F409 Halo, big 9-inch floating screen in the dash, MFT1 kit. He's going with X-Type S65s for the rear coaxials, and he's gonna go with the X-Type S165C in the door. As we said, it's a 3-way set. Alpine makes these guys here, which is the 30MC, is their universal 3-inch mid-range that we hope will fit in the location up high in the door. We will be running wires up to the tweeters because in this, the mid-range and the tweeters share the same channel. We're going to be going full active. The RA90S, it's Alpine's 6-channel staggered power amplifier. And of course, we'll be doing fast strings and roadkill on the doors. This is going to be the amplifier to power the subs. He had this there again from his previous 2010 Mustang install, which is the X Series mono block. We're going to use that again to power those 2 Alpine R-type subs. This is our Mustang adapter that we build because you need something thin and the Metra and packs are too thick. We need to test fit this with our X-type speaker to make sure it is the right size, and if it's not, redesign it, and then we'll get those cut out on the laser, as well as compare these to our existing mount to see if they'll fit. Well, that is the task at hand, and as soon as Fernando gets done redoing the tech flex onto the roll, he's going to get that door panel off so that we can take a look at those factory speakers and make sure ours will fit. With the door off, we can kind of see what we're dealing with and the area that we want to focus on, because we're not going to do a full sound treatment to this. We're going to do what we call our basic plus, which is mainly concentrating around the speakers itself and treating the door panel because this thing's plastic and it likes to rattle. The full baked potato or the ground zero package that we do would cover the whole door panel, but that gets expensive and we know not everyone's wanting to do that. Looking at the factory speakers, we can see it's just like a generic 6.5-inch woofer, but this is the problem that you run into. As you can see, this is it. This is all you have, and if you look close at the factory fast string, you can see where the factory digs right into this. When using an aftermarket speaker, they're usually big. This is how thick the aftermarket adapters are. And what happens is by the time you put the speaker in and the ring, you're hitting the door. Be very careful when choosing a speaker and or make your own baffles like we're gonna do. This is the smaller driver here. Another problem you run into, it's the same thing. This foam here presses up against the door. You see how recessed in the factory speaker is. The temptation to just pull this out, put a new one in, is just, oh, I want to do that. If you do though, what's going to happen is aftermarket speaker is going to be thick. It's going to rest up against the door. Every time it moves, it'll hit the door, cause a bunch of rattling and or blow the speaker. Taking this out and making a whole new bracket system that we do, which moves the aftermarket speaker in a little bit further, gives it room to move, is what you want to do. And you can just trace this, use it as your template. Head over here to the bench and take a look at these speakers. First up is we're going to take a look at those components, the XS65Cs. For those of you interested in high res, these are high res certified. Inside the box you get some information on the tweeters, you get the warranty card. It's 2 pieces of foam, bag of zip ties, some double-sided tape, screws, sticky tape for the tweeters, more screws for the speakers, Alpine logos for the grills. The tweeters themselves are huge. They come with 2 passive crossovers for the tweeter. If you open them up on the inside here, you'll see where they have attenuation, 0 and ±3, and then they have a normal or reverse phase here, which is an interesting jumper for sure. I believe they do that because once these are all soldered into place, obviously you'd have to cut it, so making those jumpers in there is kind of a nice feature. 2 grills if you need them. Taking a closer look, Alpine uses a neo magnet with this. They use an aluminum basket, treated cloth cone, rubber surround. Really nice speaker. The bracket we are going to use, we have predetermined screw holes in this that we laser out. Looks like our speaker will fit, but it is kind of swimmy. And it's easy enough for us just to change this size and then print them with that new size. Knowing what we know now about this awesome speaker, let's take a look at the speaker we are taking out. One of the reasons why we have to make these brackets, as you can see, this is what the factory speaker looks like. It has this weird hole pattern. Yeah, it's a 6.5, but it's definitely not a screw-in style 6.5. If you put the 2 over one another like this, you can see that might not even screw into the metal of the door. It uses a standard style magnet, has some form of a composite basket, treated paper cone, which I find funny considering it's going into the door. It's gonna get wet and all that, but apparently they have really good paper. Has a foam surround, small voice coil. A couple things to think about when looking at a factory speaker, because I know we discount them as just junky or clunky or whatever thing, but look at what the factory's doing. They're putting foam on the back of the speaker so that when this screws into the car, there's nice, tight, water sealed, no vibration. And you question whether you should put a fast ring on a speaker or not, or some form of a gasket material on the front side. I don't think I've ever taken a speaker out of a car that hasn't had some form of a gasket material, and or the door would go over this and this is like slide inside of it. So they're definitely doing that from the factory. But if you'll notice all these little marks right here, you can see where the factory grill is hitting it. So even though they did all these great things, they still didn't do a wonderful design to figure out how this speaker was actually going to fit inside of the car. That's kind of funny, right? They didn't even get it right, and they made the car. It's important to know that if the factory's doing it, there's no reason you shouldn't do it, because it's there for a reason. To make that size correction, measure across the baskets. Grab the inner circle, make sure we select center point enlargement, type in our new diameter, and that'll shrink that into place. Labeled Alpine X type, export it out as an SVG file. With that done, I can load the software into the laser, and we'll see what these things look like. Speakers mounted in place. For these we used M5 screws, foam here on the back, our little gap for the wire to come out. Mounts like this in the door, this is the top, the wire will come out like this. We have our terminals facing down, that way when the rain comes down the door, they're here on the bottom. I like to do that, I don't like them up here at the top, just personal preference. Now I need to get this off to Fernando so he can finish the door.